Welcome to Pigskins and Pageantry, a podcast dedicated to all things SEC football. My name is Wes, and I'd like to invite you to join me, Jesse, and Matt each week as we discuss last week's games, news from around the league, make predictions for the upcoming games, and much, much more. Sorry, I was doing Just Dance with my kids earlier, and so I was trying out some of the moves. But anyway, what's up, everybody? If you're watching, you see that Matt is missing, and no, he wasn't too hurt to appear on the show. He's actually enjoying some well-earned vacation time. Last weekend saw some completely shocking blowouts, as well as little Vandy dispatching yet another unsuspecting victim. We'll recap those games and more, discuss the latest CFP rankings that just came out a couple of hours ago as we record, do a thought-provoking speed round, discuss the phenomenon known as Rivalry Week, and end the show with a similarly themed Just for Fun segment. So before we get into all of that, let's welcome our resident Alabama fan, Jesse. What's up?
You know, I do love the good cupcake week before Rivalry Week because somehow our rival always plays us super hard despite how abysmal they seem. So I'm feeling good. You know, I could skip over Thanksgiving entirely and just celebrate Iron Bowl, as I think it deserves more clout than Thanksgiving, but nobody asked me.
I hear you. You're talking about Cupcake Week. Did you see? I don't even remember who it was now that was talking about how embarrassing it was that the SEC has this cakewalk of a next to last week, and you know they should be embarrassed and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, dude, this is like every week for some of those other teams near the top. Not all of them, but some of them.
Honestly, if you're Clemson, this is every week. Okay. And if you're Notre Dame, it's every week. And I understand that they're not near the top anymore, but they start near the top every single week.
Right.
I saw that. And yeah, it happens. Like we schedule like one cupcake and everyone's like, well, the SEC does that on purpose. And it's like, okay, sure. We schedule that 1 week, but then we go into playoffs and we beat everybody. So what's your excuse?
Right. Yeah, it is kind of comical. People will find anything to try to latch on to. So, all right, let's talk about some of those games from last week.
Always remember, if you ain't first, you're last.
All right, well, the first one that we'll talk about is Florida at Vanderbilt. Vandy winning this one 31-24. Nobody got the point in this one. Vandy stuns us all once again. Mike Wright just lighting it up again, throwing for 3 touchdowns in this one. Ray Davis with another big game, 122 yards on 30 carries. On the other side of the ball, Richardson threw for 400 yards for Florida. The Commodores did take his lone interception and turned it into a touchdown, however. So right before halftime, Florida fumbled a punt, which Vandy recovered in the end zone for a touchdown as well. You know, a lot of mistakes like that being made by Florida. Ultimately,
special teams for Florida has not been great.
Yeah. Ultimately, Vandy cashing in on those mistakes. So Clark Lee said this is a new era in Vanderbilt football. This is a game where we can look back and see when the shift happened. Billy Napier called it a reality check. So Jesse, what are your takeaways from Vandy beating Florida?
Shock. I don't know necessarily that it's a new era. I think we need to be careful when we say that, because despite the fact that they beat Florida, which is huge for Vandy, and congrats, we got that SEC win. You still play in the SEC, and there are going to be times, and there have been times in the past, that Vandy has tripped up some SEC opponents. However, they have not consistently won against SEC opponents and had stellar seasons. So I don't know that this is a new era. I think this is something that has happened in other eras. But I want to be careful, Clark. I just want to be careful. As you mentioned, the big takeaway here for me is that it was an up and down day for Richardson. I mean, you talked about his stats there. He completed 25 of 42 passes for 400 yards with 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. And it's his first pick since October 8th, which was against Missouri. So you look at those stats and 25 of 42 is not great, but 400 yards is huge. 3 TDs is also big. But their thing is they just couldn't get much going on the ground. There was only 4 carries for him for 25 yards, which for Richardson is not something that's great. He's usually pretty mobile. And it was only his second 400-yard passing game of the season and his highest output since throwing for a career high 453 yards against Tennessee. So Richardson actually said, and I think we've talked about his character throughout the season, I think he's a very coachable individual. I like his character. I like how he owns mistakes. I like how he tends to reflect after the game and he doesn't, put it off on someone else. He constantly looks at what he can do better. And I think in this game, to me, shows that he does need another year of development. I understand that he doesn't always have the weapons around him, but I do think he needs to stay a little bit longer and be coached. But he said after the game, I could have done some things better, made some better reads, better checks for us, or even been a better leader. So just got to work. That's all. So that's Richardson. We're going to continually talk about him, I think, and hopefully talk about him next year, unless he tries to go for the draft. And then I mentioned it slightly, but there was no run game. And again, Florida suffered with a slow start. And when you have no run game and a slow start, it's not a good mix. Vandy is used to early games because you tend to get early games when you're not that great. And it seems like Florida's not doing so hot with those early games. After rushing for 291 yards and 362 yards in back-to-back wins over Texas A&M and Carolina, Florida only had 45 yards on 21 carries against Vandy, which is not great, especially against a Vandy defense that has been continually for years and years and years questionable. But yeah, they just didn't seem to be able to answer for an 11 a.m. local start. Their defense forced a 3-and-out on its first defensive possession, but Florida settled for a field goal on their opening offensive drive and, dropped a potential touchdown pass. So Coach Napier said, we moved it down in there, into the low red and got 6 to show for a lot of yards, right? Scored touchdowns in the red area, and making the other team kick field goals in the red area is a key component to the way that we play winning football. And we didn't do that today. And I would have to agree. I think it's great that Vandy won and they absolutely did some wonderful things. But I also think that Florida didn't help themselves and actually helped Vandy.
Yeah, well, I mean, Florida they basically doubled the yardage that Vandy had. But those mistakes, obviously the interception cashed in for a touchdown, fumbled the punt into the end zone for a touchdown. That's a two score swing, and Florida would have won by a touchdown if it were not for those. So
Florida's continually had special teams issues this season, and I don't know what's happening. I don't know what the juju is, but they have got to get it together because that is really, really hurting them.
Yeah. For Vandy, I mean, if you're going to end a huge SEC losing streak, you might as well just keep things going, right? And, honestly, I'm kind of okay with the new era comment. I mean, when we're talking, the last SEC win came in 2019. I think 2 in a row. I mean, it has to at least feel like a new era, right? Whether or not that's the truth of it or not. And also it helps Clark Lee to say that too, right? We want to keep the good momentum going. So let's, continue to be positive.
I mean, it might help recruiting. It's been a while since they've probably had 2 SEC wins in a row, and you've got to recruiting at Vandy is tough in general, but when you can say like, yeah, we've built a program that can at least win 2 conference games, and then when you tag that with the non-conference games, we can make a bowl game.
Right. Well, and not just recruiting, but just even in this current season, with this current team, and kind of keeping their spirits up. And obviously their confidence is high right now. I heard some announcers talking about they seem to have actually found an identity, whereas they had none really earlier in the season. They're kind of getting into that groove there. And then the fact is, if they win their next game, they go to a bowl game. Now, granted, this is against Tennessee, but Tennessee's had their struggles of their own lately too. So, throw a confident Vandy team at a reeling Tennessee team, and who knows? I don't know.
Can you imagine the chaos? Oh,
We'll definitely get into that one at the end of this, but yeah, and then Vandy's orderly storming of the field is the most Vandy thing to do, right? So also along those lines, didn't they get fined? They got
they got the top fine.
they got the top one, yeah, the $250,000 one for the third offense, yeah.
Mhm.
So,
I mean, you're
it
gonna
just
get
cracks me
fined.
up.
Go for it. Like, again, we all know I do not condone storming the field ever. I don't care who you are. It's not safe. It's not good for coaches, player. It's not good for anybody. And we'll get to it when we talk about Carolina.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna get the top fine and you're Vandy and there's probably only 2,000 people there anyways, go for it. Don't single file it. Make it worth it.
It was just I had to laugh because you watch it and you think you're used to watching storming the field, and then you watch that one and it's like you said, it's like this nice neat little line. Everybody goes in order. There's no tearing down of any goalpost. Nothing destroyed.
Like a deli line. Like people had picked numbers and gotten the right spot, and like
I love it because it's on brand. So
it is anything if not on brand.
Yeah. This ends an 8-game losing streak to Florida as well. So there you go.
There we go.
All right. Well, let's move to Georgia at Kentucky. Georgia winning this one only by a mere 10 points, 16-6. Matt got the point in this one. Yeah, Kentucky actually controlled the clock a lot in this game. It's kind of an interesting game to watch because Kentucky wasn't necessarily able to cash in on that, but they just kind of kept the ball away from Georgia for a lot of, especially the first half, it seemed. They had a lot of sustained drives, but ultimately not able to get points. Georgia's offense wasn't exactly pretty either during this. It was a cold, windy day. I get that, but still not pretty. But they did get what they needed for the win. So, Jesse, you have any takeaways from this one?
Two big ones for me is both defenses, Kentucky and Georgia, were a bend, don't break mentality. And for me, for Kentucky, it's got to feel good. You got to put some confidence in your defense because knowing that Georgia offense, it's potent, it's high powered, and they were able to hold them to a very low score. So despite the fact that their offense for Kentucky was abysmal and they were not able to actually do anything with the ball, their defense held up. And again, you have to have both to win games, but you have to be excited that at least your defense made it not a blowout. And again, with Georgia's defense, I'm not incredibly impressed with the way that Kentucky's offense has been trending, especially as of late. But the defense still showed up and did what they were supposed to do. So good on both defenses. The other thing is Bennett is good. I'm not arguing that. I don't think anyone's arguing that. He has a lot of weapons, which I think helps, but he's not a Heisman candidate. And I think this game completely shut that down. I think before this game, there was a shot of him getting some votes, getting an invitation to New York or wherever it's going to be held. I think it's New York this year. I think this game took him out of it. I don't know that he gets the invitation. He went 13 for 19, which not terrible, for 116 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. And after that, it was clear that Monken and the offensive staff just kind of called the game so that it didn't require Stetson to be a difference maker, which is fine. They got the W. That's what they needed. Now, has his goal necessarily been to get a Heisman? Probably not. I think he wants to be a back-to-back Natty champ, which is great. And he very well may get that chance. But I think the past couple games, except for the game against Tennessee, proves that he may not get that invite to the Heisman.
Right. Yeah, and it seems like the way that they called the game too wasn't necessarily, I mean, he only threw it 19 times, like you mentioned. McIntosh, had 19 carries for 143 yards and a touchdown. It's apparent that they were really just trying to kind of Kentucky, because that's
Yeah.
Kentucky's MO really is to kind of, run that pro style offense, control the game on the ground, try to control the clock, slow, methodical. And it's really like they just kind of wanted to do that. I know some Dog fans weren't necessarily happy with the play calling in this one, but I wonder if that has to do with it. I know the weather had some to do with it. And then also, I don't know if there's anything to this, but if you think that you have the game in hand, and obviously you're seeing in this game that Kentucky's not able to do much on the offensive side of the ball, you have the lead. I don't know if there's something to this, but perhaps you don't want to tip your hand either on offense, and you don't want to open up the playbook too much and expose what you can do. Maybe that's just a shot in the dark, but it's something to think about, I think.
I mean, we're used to in recent years this very un-SEC style offense where we're passing the ball constantly. Quarterbacks are putting up insane numbers. So are wide receivers, tight ends, especially for Georgia. And we're seeing high scores that if you remember when you and I were growing up, or gosh, I would say 8 years ago, that didn't happen.
No.
Your running backs who were all over the ball. Your quarterbacks were game managers that just had to hand it off, and it was ground and pound. And the stats look very different in recent years.
Defensive, heavy.
Defense heavy.
Yeah.
And now we don't see that. We used to make fun of other conferences for this style of play, but we've kind of transitioned to it. I think too, talking about quarterbacks, I don't know that Will Levis gets drafted. Maybe.
If he does, I think it's pretty low. I still think the dude should wait. And I know that's probably not popular. He's got the extra COVID year if he chooses to use it. And I know probably everybody's screaming that he needs to go in the draft, but I think by coming back, barring injury, of course, but I think if he plays any better, he only helps his stock. It's just gone way down. I think. Right now.
Hot take. We talked about it before. I think you should transfer.
Yeah.
I honestly, I think, and again, I could be wrong. Kentucky fans are going to revolt. I think he should transfer. I think he's done what he can do at Kentucky. I don't know that he has, and it may not be the coaching, it may not be the leadership. It could just be that he's become who he's going to be there. And he might need to go somewhere else to get some different development, to get some different looks in statistics, because the conference is just different wherever he would go. I think he needs to go out of conference and transfer.
Yeah. What is, what year? Okay. So here's a fun thing. So Bo Nix is a senior. So, he's, I don't know about COVID year or whatever. What if Will Levis decided, he wanted to go have some fun in that fun and gun style offense where they just, throw the ball all over the field. He can even run when he wants to. Levis enjoys a good run every now and then.
I'm thinking Oklahoma.
Or that too. Think about
Oklahoma.
I think of the numbers he could have in those places.
Exactly. And it would boost his draft stock. Hell, go to Wyoming. I don't know. Look at Josh Allen. Go to Wyoming.
Exactly. You never know.
I mean, it's typically, and I've talked about this with friends before, where it's like, you look at these huge school quarterbacks and you're like, oh yeah, so-and-so is going super high. But usually in the NFL, it's the quarterbacks that aren't from those schools. It's like the directional school quarterbacks that actually do well, or like smaller conferences. You look at like a Wyoming.
Right.
Heck, Mac Jones got seeded for the guy from Western Kentucky. Like,
right.
I'm just saying, I'm Will Levis. I might be transferring. And I'm sorry, Kentucky. I have no issue with you. I actually kind of like Kentucky. I'm just saying.
I'm trying to think of who was the last quarterback that Kentucky was known for. I don't mean like at Kentucky. I mean like in the NFL. I don't know. One's not coming to my mind right now.
There's not like a standout.
Tim Couch, probably. He's probably one of the only names that I can think of recently popular in terms of the NFL, not just somebody that we know from Kentucky. But that's crazy. Yeah, you never know. I'm really curious to see what happens with that. All right, let's get to the game of the day, as far as I'm concerned, because it just blew all of our minds. Tennessee at South Carolina. South Carolina winning this one 63. That's right, 63-38. Nobody got the
Say it
point here.
again for the people in the back.
63-38. So South Carolina shocks the world. They scored first, and they never trailed in this game.
9 out of 11 possessions.
Yeah.
They scored on 9.
So I knew what the score was in this game, but then I saw that stat that listed every single drive and the outcome of every single drive. I even knowing the score, I was like,
blew my mind.
That can't be right. There's that no.
At any point during the game, I was watching it and I was like, this one is when it's going to turn. It's this possession. Right? It's going to turn. It's going to be bad. And it never.
Well, Tennessee pulled within a score around half, didn't they? It was like in the 30s there or something like that.
Close, yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like you. I looked at my wife and I was like, this is going to be it. This is where it crumbles. You know, like I'm not gonna assume anything. It's not gonna happen, right? Because it's gonna be one of those. Especially we know how potent this Tennessee offense is. They're gonna kick it into high gear, never look back, and leave them in the dust. And that just never happened. As a matter of fact, it was quite the opposite, where South Carolina just went crazy.
I was waiting, like I'm obviously in, for those that don't know, I'm in South Carolina, like 2 hours from Columbia. And I don't know a single South Carolina fan. I'm not even kidding. I don't know one. Yeah. Everyone I know here is a Clemson fan or a College of Charleston fan. But I'm sitting here and I'm not a Carolina fan, obviously, but I'm just waiting for them to break my spirits, like everyone else in the state probably is. I'm just like, it's going to turn after halftime. Tennessee makes adjustments. Heupel gets them straight. Like, it's fine. Spencer Rattler does what Spencer Rattler does. No. No. South Carolina made my heart soar like Alabama could not against Tennessee.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. Spencer Rattler had the absolute best game of his career, I believe.
Oklahoma fans are hitting their heads against walls.
Passing for 438 yards and 6 touchdowns. I believe both of those are career highs. Definitely the touchdowns. This ended up being a shootout, and what I think we all predicted, that the South Carolina offense would outpace that vaunted Vols offense. And also they pulled out the stops. They had play calling where they were calling trick plays, all kinds of different schemes there. It was kind of crazy, but at the same time, what a coaching job by Shane Beamer. I mean, like, the dude realized we have nothing to lose. We're just going to lay it all out there. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. And that's what I started. And I'm sure other people have thought about too. And not just with South Carolina, but when you're a team that literally everyone thinks you're supposed to lose, and you probably think you're supposed to lose too.
Right.
You just play differently because there's no pressure and it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You just go out there and you do what you're supposed to do. You throw everything at the wall when it comes to play calling and you see what sticks. And you don't come in with this air of superiority. You just do what you got to do. And they did it. And it was incredible. And I think what we also saw with Tennessee against Georgia and now against Carolina, which are both very tough places to play in. Surprisingly, Columbia is a very tough place to play in. Those fans were relentless.
Mm-hmm.
The Vols don't travel well. When they're playing in Neyland, they have their 12th man.
100%.
Everybody else doesn't play well. They get so many false starts and different penalties, and the crowd is a factor. And this crowd was a factor, and Tennessee did not handle it well. You mentioned Spencer Rattler finally, and in our notes, I have it in all caps, did something. An unpredictable career high, like you said, throwing for 438 yards, 5 touchdowns.
6.
Oh, 6 touchdowns. And then it's like Oklahoma is probably, they're probably not too mad, but they're probably just like, where was this guy?
Right.
He came into the night with 9 interceptions and 8 touchdowns and averaging 198 yards a passing game. And everyone was like, you know what? Maybe we throw in the backup because this guy ain't it. But he was patient in the pocket. He was throwing passes in narrow windows. He was on point all night. And I don't know who gave him, like, from Space Jam, like Mike's special sauce, like his drink of the water bottle, but somebody gave Spencer special sauce because he was on it. And it was so much fun, if you're not a Vol fan,
Right.
to watch. It was so much fun to watch. And the Carolina defense, I have this in the notes too. Beamer was playing freshman backups to the starting freshmen on defense. People went out for targeting, they went out for injuries,
Right.
and brought in another freshman. And they stopped Tennessee's offense.
Mm-hmm.
What?
I don't
have an explanation. I can't tell you why. I don't know. No
yeah.
idea.
So Matt did have a takeaway for this. Obviously he's on vacation, doesn't have a ton of cell service, but he did pop in for a comment on this one. He said, this is all in caps, mind you. I have no clue what happened here. I'm in the Bahamas. There is not heartache here with like 5 exclamation points. So
We
clearly,
also are not clear because we think Matt found out the score today.
right.
We are not clear if Matt knows the status of Hendon Hooker.
Right, which it did mean to mention there. Wasn't necessarily a factor in this game. It was already well out of hand when that happened, but obviously we wish him a speedy recovery. And clearly he appears to have a bright NFL future ahead, so best of luck with that as well. So obviously he was hugely instrumental in the insane season that Tennessee has had this year. A huge season for Vol fans. Again, I know even after they lost to Georgia, I know this was kind of an unexpected loss to drop, but even after they lost to Georgia, I know Tennessee fans were just super excited regardless. They're like, look, we didn't expect for this to even be a conversation, for us to even be in the conversation at this point. So, they're definitely happy with the way things have gone, and best wishes to Hendon Hooker there for sure.
I do want to say another thing.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee's defense could not stop the 11th ranked offense in the SEC. 11th.
Yeah.
The Gamecocks gained 606 yards after failing to get 300 yards in 3 of their past 4 games. The 63 points were the most the Vols have ever allowed in an SEC game, eclipsing the 62-37 loss of Steve Spurrier's Florida in 1995.
Mm-hmm.
So this was just unprecedented. And I mentioned it before when we talked about rushing the field. Carolina rushed the field, right?
They did.
I do not agree. I'm still not going to agree. I'm never going to agree. I don't care who it is.
It's so dangerous.
It's so dangerous. If you go back and you watch, because they kept the camera on the field and they're trying to get Coach Heupel out, not safe. It was so difficult to get him out. The 3 state troopers were surrounding him, just trying to push through. And it's not only dangerous for the opposing team.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at Spencer Rattler, and I understand he probably was excited about everything that was happening, but he was also not safe. There are so many people swarming this one young man. It's a whole crowd
taking selfies left and right,
and they're like they're not
in
pushing
his face
him in a mean way, but they're like pushing him. These guys could get easily hurt. The reporters and people who are actually out there trying to do their job could get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not safe.
You could see it.
Every fan base, don't do it.
I think, obviously, like you said, he was Spencer Rattler was very excited, but I agree. I saw,
I was
you know, how
concerned.
you have that look in somebody's face where they don't feel safe. They're concerned that something bad is about to go down. And I don't think there's any malicious intent, but anytime
Mm-mm.
you get a huge mass of humanity moving like that, you just never know
It
what
takes
could happen.
one trip,
Yeah, that's all it takes.
one trip for him and somebody to step on him, anything. Nobody could even step on him. They could push him wrong, he could fall, and he's out for a season. We
Yeah.
talk about how often these like super small injuries are the ones that are nagging people, and
Hmm.
one thumb for a quarterback gets screwed up and they can't play for weeks.
Right.
So you just really have to be careful. Whether it's your team, whether it's an opposing team, it's a safety concern. I understand you're excited. I get it, man, especially beating a Tennessee team like this, but still, you got to think about the safety of everybody involved. And this is quite literally their future.
Yeah.
And you have to take that into account.
Yeah. uh and just kind of wrapping up the game real quick, I don't know where this South Carolina offense has been, like we've kind of discussed and you've mentioned their struggles earlier in the year, and like where has this been, but like you're watching the game on Saturday night and it's like Rattler could do no wrong. It was like you're talking about him throwing passes into these tight windows and all this stuff. It was like he just connected on every pass, it seemed like, and you're like, what is going on? Is this like is the moon full, or like what is happening?
I had to imagine it's the self-imposed pressure
Yeah.
and anxiety. And
And,
and when you take that away,
yeah,
just have
it's true.
fun.
Dude
You
has
just
had
play football.
a ton of pressure placed on him. So yeah, and maybe that's all it took. Maybe they need to try that every week. Be like, dude, you know what? We are not expecting next week when they
We're
are
supposed to lose.
exactly. Who cares? Just like you said, let it fly, and we'll see what happens. I
I mean,
don't.
that's the thing, and I think they talk about this in baseball too. When you're aiming that hard, and you're just focused on that, that's when you miss.
Yeah.
You just gotta throw it. Just do
Right.
mechanically what you know you're supposed to do and stop trying so hard to get it in such a small spot,
Right.
and it works.
Right. Because when the mechanics are right, then everything else goes where it's supposed to.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and then like on the other side, is Tennessee's defense this bad? I know that there have been concerns all year, and we've talked about Tennessee's defense being a concern, but in my mind, they were still improved from last year's defense that
Sure.
was not good. Uh, but this game tends to kind of argue otherwise. So I'm just all kinds of confused. I really don't know what to think, and obviously I know you can't really evaluate overall on one game, but this performance was just not pretty in a game
Not
where,
pretty, and their offense couldn't bail them out.
yeah.
I mean, I'm obviously gonna go back to the Bama game. We lost by like what was it, 2 points?
On that,
That
yeah.
was that score was in the 50s for both of us.
Hmm.
That's not a good defensive game.
Right.
Your offense bailed you out of it.
Right.
And I think that's what's dominated the conversation for Tennessee has been the offense.
Hmm.
And yes, to an extent, they've held some other teams to lower scores, but at the end of the day, the offense has been the main point. And maybe we've just overlooked the defense. I think they've put some pressure certainly on other teams, but their ability for their offense to spread another team's defense out and just outrun them has been incredible. And they weren't able to do that with Carolina.
Right.
And I think that started to at least put more of a microscope on their defense.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm not going to say anything else because that's actually part of our speed round. So,
Wow.
yeah, this and I think with this loss, this just 100% opens the door for another conference to get in the playoff, unless
Absolutely.
LSU beats Georgia in the SEC championship, which that opens up a whole nother thing. But there is one scenario that I'm not going to talk about yet, and we'll talk
Okay.
about later.
I'm just going to say that Tennessee's like historic season for the past like 15 years
Yeah.
has the same, not scheduled, the same wins and losses
Yeah.
as Alabama's abysmal season in the
Yeah.
past 15 years.
Spoken like a true Bama fan. I hear you.
I'm going to say it. I'm biased. I know.
Yeah.
I tell my mother this every time. I'm biased, but it's part of my podcast and I make the content so I can say what I want.
And we don't want anybody to apologize. That's the whole point. That's why we have a conversation. If we all were the same, it wouldn't be interesting, right? So,
but I will say, Tennessee, despite the loss, be excited. This is
100%
better for your program than, again, it has been in 15 years. Yes, you lost to South Carolina. Other really good programs have done that too.
Mm-hmm.
And not just to South Carolina, other very small teams.
Look at the other teams up top that almost lost this weekend as well and won by narrow margins.
Yes. So Tennessee, hold your head high. You still have had an incredible season. You should be very proud of your starting quarterback. And I have no doubt that he will do well despite his injury in the NFL. So you're doing okay.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about the final competitive game from last week, and that was Ole Miss. I say competitive, Anyway, Ole Miss at Arkansas. Arkansas winning this one 42-27. Nobody getting the point in this one either.
No.
Here's another one that went exactly as we expected, right? So, I mean, like I mentioned, was there a full moon? Is there something else in retrograde right now? Like, what is going on?
There was some juju, man. I don't know who's juju, but honestly, there was some Big Ten juju. That's what it was.
That's got to be it.
The Big Ten had some voodoo dolls and a cauldron of something.
Well, here's the funny thing. So Arkansas, on paper, this looks like a lopsided victory, right? Arkansas wins this one despite giving up over 700 yards of offense to Ole Miss. Over 700 yards. So Jefferson, KJ Jefferson was back and looking healthy. There were actually 3 200-yard rushers in this game. 2 for Ole Miss, Quinshon Judkins and Zach Evans. And then Rocket Sanders for Arkansas. I mean, it's just offense everywhere.
It's not the SEC of 8 years ago.
No,
it's just not.
Absolutely not. Score was 35-6 Arkansas at halftime, and then Arkansas did what they needed to do. This one was kind of out of hand, and obviously they just sort of closed it out in the second half. And with this win, Arkansas becomes bowl eligible. So kudos to Arkansas there. Jesse, what are your takeaways for this one?
We talk about it a lot throughout the season across several teams and several games. Penalties will eat you up and they will cost you the game. And for Ole Miss, penalties in key moments especially were an issue. Ole Miss gave up 2 touchdowns early in the game because of holding calls on the offense. Although Ole Miss is a good, pretty organized, disciplined team, there were a lot of aspects of the game that were messy and could have been avoided just by playing cleaner football. And that really hurt them. In the post-game press conference, Coach Kiffin said, I don't like the penalties. They were very critical penalties, especially on a 4th and 9 touchdown. And that's the truth. I mean, you look at how much offense for both teams in this game. It's insane. And again, we've seen it across a multitude of games and a multitude of teams. But when you have penalties, especially in key moments, you are playing against yourself and you are giving advantages to the other team that you just can't give. The other thing is, and I think this is the cutest thing I've ever heard in football. It's so sweet. Arkansas, obviously, like you said, clinches bowl eligibility. They did it on senior night. And the motivation is so precious. So Coach Pittman said, first of all, I thought our coaching staff did a really good job of preparing our kids. We had a lot to play for. We had our seniors. We had a dedication game. We talked all week about dedicating the game to somebody else and bringing them into our family. They had a shirt on underneath, and they wrote on their shirt in marker who they want to bring into the family, our football family.
Aw.
And that's who they dedicated the game to and played for. It was a top 15 team in the country. It would put us bowl eligible our first 3 years here. There was a lot of motivation for us, a lot to play for. Certainly, we were fortunate. We had our home crowd as well. How cute. How Sam
Wow.
Pittman, how cute.
Yeah. Yeah. The guy is just he just seems to have a heart of gold, and that's just so cool.
I
Uh,
mean, and it's just precious. I'm sure those guys like wrote their grandmama's name
right.
on their shirt. But yeah, Arkansas needed this.
Mm-hmm.
They needed it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm personally, I'm kicking myself for not picking him. I even talked about it last week. I was like, I just got that feeling. And then I thought about Jefferson's injury. He's been playing hurt, and there's all these other things. And I talked myself out of it, and kicking myself. Ole Miss's inconsistencies, as you mentioned, killing them. Not much defense either, obviously. And I wonder if Lane is distracted and maybe getting ready for a change. I don't know. A bunch of people were kind of
He's
ticked.
been trolling on the
I
tweeter.
saw that's what was it? These newscasters saying, he's the deal is done, and he tweets back saying, "Did you see the one he tweeted back at the reporter?" And he actually
He made like a fake press
he word for word like re-quoted it, but he rearranged it, so he was like, so and so is headed to a different news station.
Yep.
The deal is all but done.
I love it. And the tweets about like he was gonna go to Auburn, but Ole Miss countered with 6 Taylor Swift tickets, and it just tipped the deal in Ole Miss's favor. And I know we might be getting ahead of ourselves, and it's not necessarily about the Arkansas game, but I don't see the benefit for Lane Kiffin in going to Auburn. He's established himself at Ole Miss. He's done well at recruiting with Ole Miss. It is still a premier SEC program. It's still in the West, and he has less ground to cover at Ole Miss than he does at Auburn. There's a lot to do at Auburn, and they just signed him to an extension for an ungodly amount of money. I don't know the benefit for him to go there. To me, logically, it seems like a step down because there's so much to do there.
Yeah, I agree. He's already got his recruits in at Ole Miss, or at least has several classes in, so that helps. And Auburn right now, I know they've had a few inspirational games recently, but they are still. I don't know if fixer upper is the right term for them right now, but there's a lot of work to be done to that program to get it back where it needs to be. So it's like you said, it's not all fun and games. Oh, I go to Auburn and automatically I'm, competing with Alabama every year. No, I don't think it's that at all.
If anything, I'm a coach. I don't want to go there.
Right.
There's such high expectations, and they will fire you quickly.
Right.
Why would I want to go there? I'm going to stay at Ole Miss where we have a winning record. I've started to turn the program around. People like me. I'm fun. They deal with my antics. I still get to play in the West. I still get to play Nick Saban every year. Why do I leave?
Right. No, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. So, all right. Well, that does it for the quote unquote competitive games. We have a few more here. Austin P at Alabama, Bama winning this one 34-0. Jesse getting the point. East Tennessee State at Mississippi State winning this one 56-7. I got the point there. UMass, Texas A&M winning that one 20-3. Jesse and Matt both had the same differential. We had to do math. Matt gets the point. By the way, just real quick, I don't know if you saw that game, but there was nobody in the stands in that game. It was bad weather, I will say that. But I know a ton of schools
of the shirt exchange.
I don't think I did.
Okay, weird things happen in College Station. Please explain if you're someone that lives there or was there. But there's like this video of what I can only assume is some like agricultural frat guys, just no shirt on in their Levi's with their belt buckles and their boots. And they're in sections of, I guess the upper bowl, it's raining, has a white t-shirt, flipping it around, runs to the next section, passes it off like it's a baton to the next guy. He runs across the section, tossing it around, and then it just keeps going. It was weird.
These are the same dudes who do the midnight yell, and this is why you get the results.
Absolutely. And everyone across Instagram was like, someone please explain what's happening in College Station. Are y'all okay?
So while the weather could have been an explanation, you look at the some of the places up north where there's like 5 feet of snow and they're still packed out. So I'm not going to use that as an excuse. I get it's UMass, but come on. Anyway.
Buffalo people are built different. We cannot compare ourselves to them.
Right. So yeah, A&M winning there, and then Kentucky or Western Kentucky at Auburn. Auburn winning this one 41-17. This one was actually kind of close at half. I think it was actually 17 all at some point.
I was almost right for a half.
Yeah, I know. I think I picked them too. I can't remember. I picked close at least. And then New Mexico at Mizzou. Mizzou winning this one 45-14. I got the point in that one. And then UAB at LSU. LSU winning that one 41-10. Matt getting the point there. So, Jesse, do you have anything to say about any of those real quick?
Roll Tide.
Okay. Current pick'em standings. I got 39. Matt has 34. Jesse has 17. We'll still have lots of games to go. Heightened worth for the games as well. So see what happens. All right, let's talk about some news, mainly the rankings.
Here's the news.
All right, so CFP rankings just came out as we record just about a couple of hours ago. So the rankings are as follows: number 1, Georgia; number 2, Ohio State; number 3, Michigan; number 4, TCU; number 5, LSU; number 6, USC; number 7, Alabama; number 8, Clemson; number 9, Oregon; number 10, Tennessee. Tennessee dropped 5 there. And then the last SEC team in the top 25 is Ole Miss at number 20. How are you feeling? How are you feeling about those? Does that look about right, or?
It makes sense. However, things could get weird real fast. They started getting weird this week with Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
When Ohio State and Michigan play, things are going to get interesting because you have 11-0 TCU, who this past week almost lost. It was last second, literally. And then you have USC, who again almost lost.
That was a wild game.
The juju was weird this week. We're going to find out. This is probably the first year since the CFP that I truly don't know who is going to be the top 4. I know Georgia's going to be in it. That I understand. I'm pretty sure Ohio State. Well, I don't know. Michigan could be. I don't know. 2 through 4 to me could go a couple different ways. And because Alabama only has a 15% chance, and yes, I checked, of getting into the playoff, this is wild and so much fun to watch.
I think 1 through 7, possibly 1 through 8, all, given the right set of circumstances, have a chance. Now, I don't want to get too deeply into that because we're about to talk about some of those. So let's go ahead and get right into the speed round. Speed round. All right, so we will get there, but let's start off real quick. So question number 1 for the speed round: did Tennessee get exposed last weekend, or did they just have a bad game? What do you think? And the way I'm framing that is this a fundamental issue that was masked by a potent offense? Were they exposed in that sense, or do you think they just had a bad game last weekend?
I think defense may have, like I said, I think defense wasn't their strong suit the entire time, because we look at the score of their previous games when they played a quality opponent. However, that doesn't explain the offense. And y'all can say all you want, Hendon Hooker didn't play the whole game. He played 3.5 quarters of it. All right. So no,
It was well out of hand when he
it
went
was
out.
well out of hand. They were not going to win it, even when he could have stayed in the whole time. They didn't have a chance. I don't know. I don't know if it's because finally they've had enough film to look at to like cement the way that Tennessee plays offense, because they really do spread you out. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I truly don't. I can't explain that game to you, and I watched it. I don't know.
I feel the same way. It is kind of funny how you can watch a game and understand what happened in front of you, what your eyes are taking in, but not understand why at all.
And I was thinking about this week. That's what's so fun about football and so unique to it. Just across different sports. I mean, you look at baseball, you have 162 games. First of all, it's an insane number of games. That's
Right.
ridiculous. You have basketball, dozens and dozens and dozens of games. You have it with hockey. All of these sports, you have such a bigger pot to look at statistically to understand a team more completely than you do when it comes to football. Football has such a small number of games that we're drawing statistics, we're drawing opinions and facts and all of these things and takes from such a small number of games,
Right.
that it really is hard to say definitively what is happening, what's going to happen, what could happen. We take these percentages and we try so hard to say that, yes, that's going to happen. But there is such a small pool to pull from, whereas you can more likely predict with statistics from all of those other sports than you can with football. And I think that's why it's so exciting when we do have those upsets, or so surprising, because we pull from such a small amount of data and we think it's fact, and then something happens and we're like, how did this happen? And we
Right.
don't have anything to back it up with.
Right. It seems like the feeling, I'm going to say that they got exposed, and part of my feeling with that is watching the reaction of some Tennessee fans talking about Tim Banks, the defensive coordinator, and how he should be fired and all this stuff. And I get it. Like, part of that's probably
I have
overreaction.
one you could have.
part of that's probably overreaction. I get it. It's to be expected, especially of a fan base who has had their expectations shift, and now they expect good things, and then it doesn't happen. I get that. But yeah, it does appear that they had been leaning on that offense all year, and then let's just say that offense has a bad game, or what have you, and then the defense just gets exposed because they don't have that cushion of offense that is just lighting up the scoreboard left and right. So yeah, I think so. I think they got exposed just from that standpoint. All right, let's move to Will Vandy. This is fun. Will Vandy have more than 6 wins next year? Will they be not only bowl eligible, but perhaps over that? And I'll tell you this. So Mike Wright is a junior. I'm thinking he'll probably be back. Ray Davis is having a great year, but is a senior. So part of their run game, huge part of their run game this year. Probably missing next year. Again, I don't know how the COVID year stuff factors in, and if that's even a thing or not with him. But anyway, so I put the schedule on here. I'm not going to list all the games. You can look and tell me what you think. But do you think that could be in the cards for Vandy next year?
I I think they get 5.
Think they get 5?
I don't know that they get 6, but I think they get 5. Because, and again, I don't know. Hawaii, we've already seen they did that this year. I think we get Hawaii, right? Alabama A&M, I think possible. Wake Forest, I don't know that that's possible. Maybe. UNLV, okay.
Mm-hmm.
When Will Levis transfers and Kentucky has somebody new at quarterback, maybe Kentucky.
Maybe a wide
know.
receiver at quarterback.
I mean, maybe. I think Richardson comes back at Florida. I think they have some more development and they're a little bit better. So I don't know that Florida's the same. And I think they are going to go hard against Vandy next year because this is so embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Georgia's it. I don't think Ole Miss is it. I don't know that Auburn is. I don't think South Carolina is, but maybe. I don't know. I think they get 5. I don't know that they get 6, but I think they get 5, which is still an improvement.
Okay, so I think Hawaii. They showed this year already that they can handle Hawaii. Alabama A&M is 2. Wake Forest is iffy.
Tricky.
I think they can, but it's iffy. Let's just say no for Wake Forest, and then UNLV. I think yes. I think Kentucky is a yes, especially with all the question marks that Kentucky has for next year. So that's 4 right there. Mizzou. Gosh, I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and say no for now. Probably no for Florida, no for Georgia. Ole Miss, probably not. Auburn, probably not. Well, I don't know.
We don't know who's going to coach there.
Don't know who's going to coach. Don't know who's going to be at quarterback there. Robbie Ashford's looked good. Looked better. Has improved. South Carolina and then Tennessee.
It's at South Carolina.
Yeah.
I don't think they get it done. And it's at Neyland. I don't think they get that done. I think they might have a shot against Missouri.
I think they get an SEC win next year and continue that streak of getting a win in the SEC.
They beat Kentucky next year.
But I don't. I was kind of high on Vandy for next year, just kind of rolling along. But given their schedule, they've definitely got some wins built in there, and maybe even some SEC wins. But I don't know that they get 6 wins or more.
Easy schedule.
No,
I mean, if you take this and it's not even Vandy, it's whoever you want it to be. It's an Alabama schedule. It's not an easy schedule because it's an SEC heavy schedule.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. Vandy. At least they have perhaps a better outlook.
Yes.
And
be
encouraged. And like we said, winning is a habit, losing is a habit. They're trying to get out of that losing habit, and maybe they're picking up a new habit. Who knows? All right, let's talk about the final question here. So Alabama is currently at number 7 in the CFP. Now let's go through this. If Michigan gets blown out by Ohio State, TCU loses, LSU gets beaten by Georgia in the SEC championship, and USC loses to somebody, whether it be Notre Dame or whoever they play in the Pac-12 championship, which, by the way, all of these are very real possibilities. Do you think Alabama slips into the 4th spot? Is it possible for you to set aside your Alabama colored glasses for a moment? Do you think that is possible?
I can set them aside. It's not outside the realm of possibility. But we would have to see how Clemson does as well, I think. For the committee, I think we would have to see how they do.
Clemson is currently behind Bama.
They are currently behind Bama, but still have a better record. So if they continue to win, and again, that it may not matter to the committee. There is, like I said, there's like a 15% chance Bama gets in there. And we have seen wilder things happen. And it is completely plausible that what you mentioned absolutely happens. But we also have to remember that, again, I don't think it's just Alabama that would have a chance at getting in the top 4. I think you have 7 through 9 that could potentially get in the top 4, which currently is Alabama, Clemson, and Oregon. it depends how their season turns out. Now, if Alabama loses to Auburn, God forbid, knock on wood, absolutely not. But should Alabama, Clemson, and Oregon continue to win, and 2 through 5, or not even 2 through 5, 3 through 5 lose, it's going to be a very hard day for the committee and some TCU fans, despite being, 11-1 if they were, or, whatever it may be, are going to be mad.
Yeah, well, I mean, TCU, I mean, they've been real close to a loss several times. Not saying that necessarily weighs in. I know there's been several teams up near the top who've had close games
The
too.
committee showed what they thought about TCU the first time the rankings came out, and they popped them at 7.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think it's very possible that Ohio State, has a really good game against Michigan, and if they blow them out, if TCU loses, drops an ugly game, LSU loses, USC loses in any of either of the next 2 weeks, whether it be Notre Dame or Pac-12. Jesse, I'm not trying to get your hopes up. Okay, I'm really not, but I am saying that it is very much within the realm of possibility. Now, it would be a huge collective eye roll from the rest of the nation who are not Bama fans.
Sure.
they would be like, of course.
Do I care? No.
But I do believe it's real, and I try to be realistic.
It was real until this past weekend.
When
all of those teams struggled.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, because you've got
it showed we need a bigger playoff. I mean, we're getting one, but it definitively proved again that we need another, a larger playoff. But all of these scenarios are very, very possible. And I'm living for the chaos, regardless of if Alabama gets into the top 4. I'm just living for the chaos.
It's very real, and it definitely can happen. So I think everybody's going to be glued to those upcoming games. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and get into those upcoming games.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
All right, well, this is Rivalry Week, and we're all excited for that. A bunch of classic games, tons of tradition, and so we'll talk about each of those. The first of which is Mississippi State at 7-4, 3-4 in the SEC at Ole Miss, 8-3, 4-3 in the SEC. That is known as the Egg Bowl. That'll be Thursday, Thanksgiving at 7:00 on ESPN. So just a few historic aspects of this. They first met in 1901. All-time leader of this series is Ole Miss. They lead 64 games to 45. And 6 ties. And then the trophy is the Golden Egg. The supposedly the football that was placed on this trophy was oddly shaped, and somebody was mentioning how much that it looked like an egg. So that sort of stuck. The last meeting last year, Ole Miss won this one 31-21. Jesse, what is your prediction for the Egg Bowl?
I honestly, after this season, think that it's going to be very similar to last season. I am picking the Rebels 31-24.
All right. Matt is also picking Ole Miss. He's got Ole Miss 35-21. So this is interesting. I think there's a lot of inconsistencies for Ole Miss. That's my one reservation with them in this game. And then, obviously there's rumors around Lane's possible exit as well. I know we've already talked about that, and probably not a thing, but it kind of, it can be a distraction. I think a lot of those things going on, I think it's just kind of an odd week, and then I think that's enough to kind of tip things in State's favor. So I'm going with Mississippi State 31-28.
Regardless, we know we will get some very good press conferences out of it.
100%. As soon as these two guys were hired, I was like, the Egg Bowl just got a lot more interesting. So
My favorite.
Next is Arkansas 6-5 and 3-4 in the SEC at Missouri 5-6, 2-5 in the SEC. This is the Battle Line Rivalry, Friday at 3:30 on CBS. First meeting between these teams was in 1906. Although there haven't been a ton of games. All-time leader is Mizzou. They lead 9 wins and 4 losses. And then the trophy in this one is the Battle Line Trophy, which debuted in 2015. It's basically a trophy with kind of the silhouettes of the states fused together. So last meeting in this one, Arkansas won 34-17. Mizzou would become bowl eligible with a win here. So Jesse, what are your thoughts? What are your predictions for this one?
I am thinking that Arkansas is going to continue to write their grandmama's name on their undershirt and pull through another win for the program. So I'm going to pick the Razorbacks 28-27 in a very close match, because I do think these teams are pretty evenly matched. But all in all, I think Sam Pittman and his team gets it done.
Yeah, this is that food hangover game where we're always the day after Thanksgiving. You're just chilling on a Friday, just hanging out watching football. Matt's got Mizzou in this one, 28-24. So yeah, I think that Mizzou defense comes up big in this one at home. I'm going with Mizzou in a very small upset here to become bowl eligible. Mizzou 30-24. So. Next is Florida at 6-5 at Florida State, 8-3 in the Sunshine Showdown. That's Friday at 7:30 on ABC. First meeting between these two teams was in 1958. All-time leader is Florida, 38-26-2. The trophy in this one is the McCalla Trophy. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's the carving of a Seminole Indian and a gator facing off in a battle. So last meeting, Florida won this one 24-21. Jesse, your prediction for the Sunshine Showdown?
I think that Florida is hella embarrassed after this past weekend.
You should be embarrassed.
You should be. And they are going to be practicing a lot. I also, as someone who's about to attend the University of Florida,
say it with pride. We're proud of you.
Thanks. I will be attending the University of Florida in January. But despite that, I do think that they are embarrassed of their outing against Vandy. And despite the fact that Florida State does have a better record and has come a long way since the beginning of their season, I think the Gators are going to get it done. It's going to be a really close one. And apparently I'm just picking the score a lot. So I'm going to pick the Gators 28-27.
All right,
like
Matt.
$1 when you go to,
Price is Right.
The Price is Right. Just $1.
$1, Bob. Well,
$1.
not Bob, Anyway, Matt's going with FSU. He's going Florida State 35-28. I think this is difficult. I don't like picking against the conference. Florida State is an improved team this year. I think Florida might hang around at the beginning of this game, but I think Florida State is going to pull ahead by a score in the second half. I'm going with FSU here, 34-24.
Anthony, if you can hear me, just don't let this happen.
All right. Next one is Georgia Tech at 5-6 at Georgia, 11-0 in the clean old fashioned hate Saturday at noon on ESPN. Which, by the way, as I've mentioned before, this means that the defending champs will not get a home night game. So do better scheduling, people. Anyway, preview topics for this one. First meeting between these teams was in 1893. The all-time leader, Georgia, leads 69-41-5. And then the last meeting, Georgia won this one 45-0. Jesse, your prediction for this one.
Georgia Tech didn't do bad last weekend.
They didn't. No.
They did not. And UGA did not do great. So Don't let that fool you. I'm still going to pick the Bulldogs in this one, especially because it's in Athens. This is always, even as an outside fan, I think a fun game to watch. But I'm going to pick the Bulldogs 31-14.
All right. Matt says he's picking Georgia 221-0. No, he's just kidding. But seriously, 48-9 is what he says.
And the notes actually say that. Wes isn't just being funny.
Actually, you know what? He doesn't actually say a team. I wonder if he's saying that about Tech. I'm going to ask for clarification. I'm going to assume he's talking about Georgia here, but hey, you know.
But if it is Tech and they win, he's going to be like, no, I said Tech.
Didn't maybe that's a reference. Didn't Tech win the most lopsided game in like college football history? And it was something like that in like the early 1900s or something.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think so. That is a thing. And I don't know the exact score, but it's something like that. And it's some insane number like that. Yeah, I think so. I don't think it's going to be a shutout like a year ago. But I do think it's going to be pretty close to the shutout. Georgia Tech surprised some people this year, but I don't think they have the dogs to hang in this one. No pun intended, or maybe, I don't know. I got Georgia winning this one 42-7. All right. Next is South Carolina at 7-4 at Clemson, 10-1, the Battle of the Palmetto State. Noon on ABC. Yeah. First meeting between these two was in 1896. A lot of history here as well. All-time leaders Clemson, 72-42-4. Trophy, the trophy was epic in this one for a while. So you had from the 1980s to about to 2014. It used to be the Hardee's Trophy, which I think is just a fantastic theme for a trophy.
And to be honest,
yeah.
as someone who lives in South Carolina, I have not seen a Hardee's.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I know what they merged with what Carl's Jr.
I haven't seen either.
Yeah. Interesting.
No.
That's interesting. I'd be interested to know if there are any over there and where they are. Now they have upgraded their trophy. It is now the Palmetto Trophy. That's been used from the 2015 to present. So last meeting, Clemson won this one 30-0. Your prediction, Jesse, for the Battle of the Palmetto State? As someone who's
so badly. I want so badly to pick Carolina. So badly, but I just can't. I can't trust Spencer Rattler. I can't trust what happened. I don't know. I want to be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I legitimately want to be wrong. So please prove me wrong. But I'm gonna pick Clemson in a close one. I'm picking the Tigers 31-24.
Yeah, Matt agrees. He says this is going to be a hangover game for Carolina, and that Clemson's going to win this one 38-20. This is interesting. Clemson has had some struggle wins all year, and even though Carolina hasn't looked great at times this season, I think that they kind of believe that they can win this year as well. They're riding that high.
What I'm afraid of, it's when they believe that they do bad.
I know, and if you were to go back and listen to the rivalry week predictions last year, I did this same thing, and maybe I'm the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, but I'm insane. So I'm gonna go with the same thing. I know Clemson is a 2-score favorite in this one, but I'm gonna go with the Carolina upset. I'm going South Carolina 31-27.
I hope you're right. I genuinely do.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be a fun one, though. I hope
we gotta go to a Carolina game next season.
Yeah, that would be so much fun. And apparently, it's a insane, intimidating place to play, as we found out last weekend.
They were screaming overrated
at saw
Tennessee, and it gave me life.
So. Yeah, I kind of enjoyed it. If it was my team, I wouldn't like it because I don't like that.
I'd be so upset.
Yeah,
but I'm only okay with it because it's not my team and it's one of our rivals.
Right, exactly.
I'm biased. I know.
All right, Louisville. The next one is Louisville at 7-4 at Kentucky 6-5. This is the Governor's Cup, 3:00 Saturday, 3:00 on SEC Network. First meeting between these two was in 1912. All-time leaders Kentucky, 18 and 15. And the as I mentioned, trophy is the Governor's Cup. Last meeting, Kentucky won 52-21. Jesse, your prediction for the Governor's Cup, Louisville and Kentucky.
I do not think it is a repeat of last year. I hate picking against the conference, but I don't know that Kentucky gets this done. So I'm going to pick Louisville 31-21.
Yeah. Matt
You have
agrees.
bourbon. Both of you have bourbon. So just like enjoy.
There you go. I think that should be the theme. That should be like the trophy. Is like a
It should be the bourbon cup.
Yeah, I agree. I think that wow, and like you want to talk about like marketing possibilities there.
You want to talk about sponsorship. Come
on. Matt agrees. Louisville is going to win this one. He's going 35-21. Yeah, I don't know, man. Kentucky's performed below our expectations this year. Louisville hasn't looked spectacular either, and this game is at home for the Wildcats. I think Levis has a good game and what might be his final home game in a Kentucky uniform. So this is kind of funny. I'm kind of doing opposite of you guys for most of these. I'm going Kentucky 24-21 in this one.
Oh, okay.
So, hey, I'm not saying that, they're a great team or they're turning into a great team, but, I think that they maybe get it done, do enough to get it done in this one. So, all right, let's talk about Auburn 5-6, 2-5 in the SEC, at Alabama 9-2, 5-2 in the SEC. That is the Iron Bowl, 3:30 on CBS this upcoming Saturday. First meeting between these two was in 1893. All-time leader, Alabama leads 48-37-1. The trophy is the and if I get any of this wrong, Jesse, you know all this history for sure. James E. Foy, the VODK. Is that? I don't know.
I think that's correct.
Sponsors the Sportsmanship Trophy, more commonly known as the Foy ODK Sportsmanship Trophy, first awarded in 1948. Last meeting, Alabama won 24-22 in 4 OTs. So
no,
that one was just insane. Yeah. So, what are your predictions, Jesse?
I predict that my heart can't handle another 4 overtimes, and we sure as hell better not do it again. Good Lord, that was awful. Oh my God, it was awful. It was horrible. We're praising the Lord above that we are at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Thank you. I think this is likely going to be a little bit closer than what a lot of people imagine. And I say that because, number one, Bama has not been lovely this season. Number two, because Auburn has a little bit of new spirit since Cadillac Williams took over. And number three, regardless of any records, regardless of how people are playing, any recruiting classes, whatever it may be, these two teams play each other really, really hard. It's just a long-standing rivalry, and it's just different. I mean, it honestly is just different. And to anybody that has never been to an Iron Bowl, whether you're a Bama or an Auburn fan, I highly suggest you go, because it is an atmosphere that is second to none. It's something that's just unmatched and wonderful to be a part of. So I'm going to pick the Tide in this one. Again, a little bit closer than some might think, but I'm picking Bama 35-21.
All right. Matt has Bama as well, 45-20. Vegas has Bama, last I looked, favored by about 21.5. I know that's probably what should happen, but this is the Iron Bowl, Jesse, as you already alluded to, and Auburn is shockingly fighting for a bowl game here. So, yeah, there's tons at stake here for both of these teams, though. I know Bama fans are probably disappointed about the playoff situation, although, who knows, more to come there. But regardless, a chance to get to 10 wins and play in the good bowl game if the playoff thing doesn't work out. I think the This one is, as you said, closer than expected. Not 4 overtimes close like last year, but closer. I got Bama winning this one 28-21.
We can't do that again.
Yeah, I
And
just
Auburn fans can't do that. None of us can do that
nobody
again. We just can't. Please don't do it.
as a fan who had of neither team, I quite enjoyed it, but that was just for the pure insanity of it.
My mother and I were each clutching a pillow, crouching on the ground in front of the couch. It was not good.
Yeah. Yeah, those are those games where if you're a fan of the team, it's just brutal. But if you're not a fan, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, I understand we're insane for letting this affect our emotional stability as much as it does. I get it. Is it changing? Nah.
I love that you just sort of accepted it too. All right, cool. Yeah, definitely looking forward to that one. Next one is LSU 9-2, 6-1 in the SEC at Texas A&M, 4-7, 1-6 in the SEC. 7:00 on ESPN. First meeting between these two is in 1899. All-time leader LSU leads 35-22-3. The last meeting, LSU won 27-24. So, Jesse, what is your prediction for this rivalry that does not have a name?
We should have a name.
We need to figure that one out.
Some marketing executive has to have this figured out. Come on. That's what we get paid to do.
Introduce something, yeah.
I know, like, I don't know, something. I don't know. The Hurricane Bowl. I don't know.
Oh,
anyway,
gosh.
This one, I can't give away the notes. I want A&M to win. I know. Shocking. I hate them both. But I don't think they get it done. There's too much amiss in College Station, and there's too much going right in Baton Rouge. I'm going to pick the Tigers in this one, 28-17. And the only reason it's so close is because it's a night game at Kyle Field.
Okay. All right. Matt says, can A&M pull the upset? Yes. Yes, they can. Texas A&M 28-24. So, all right. So I think I might be more curious to see if anyone shows up at Kyle Field for this one than I am to watch the game. Is part of that a protest against Jimbo? And if so, will they be absent for this one? I don't know.
Oh my God, I hope so. It's not gonna work. I'm sorry.
It's not. Yeah, at least not for a little bit. Yeah, I don't think this one.
I'll start a GoFundMe like Tennessee did.
I don't think this one's going to be a blowout either. I think A&M keeps everybody on the edge of their seat, but then LSU pulls it out in the fourth quarter. I'm going with LSU 24-17. Yeah, just making sure that we're not the same there. Yeah, 24-17. Yeah. The last one is Tennessee. This one is another one that desperately needs a name. Tennessee 9-2, 5-2 in the SEC at Vanderbilt, 5-6, 2-5 in the SEC. 7:30 on SEC Network. First meeting between these two is in 1892. Don't forget that Vandy was actually really good in the early stages of football. So that I think this is lopsided. The all-time leader, Tennessee, leads 78-33-5. But I think the majority of those 33 wins for Vandy were, a long time ago. Although there have been some in recent days. Last meeting, Tennessee won this one 45-21. And then Vandy could become bowl eligible with a win. Jesse, I want to know your thoughts, your prediction.
First of all, I have a name for the bowl.
Okay.
And if they don't take this, shame on them.
Yes.
This should 1000% be called the Dolly Parton Bowl. And anyone that disagrees with me is just wrong. It's the Dolly Parton Bowl. And I will accept nothing less. Okay.
I thought we were going with you said the two teams from Kentucky beat Bourbon. I didn't know if there's going to be some kind of whiskey reference here.
Our Lord and Savior Dolly Parton. That is Parton.
That makes sense.
Dolly Parton Bowl, and she is the national treasure and protect her at all costs. Okay.
trying to think
So
of
in the Dolly Parton
marketing.
Bowl,
Anyway.
I'm just saying, and make the trophy however you see fit with that description of the Dolly
Oh,
Parton
goodness.
Bowl. Okay. So while I think the Vols are going to be embarrassed, and I think that Vandy is going to be very hyped, I still think Tennessee gets it done. However, we must remember Hendon Hooker is not there.
Right.
And he's not going to be there. Okay.
Right.
So it is not going to be the 60 burger that you all hope for. You will win, but it's going to be a little bit closer than I think you would want. I'm going to pick the Volunteers 38-14 in the Dolly Parton Bowl.
Matt says the Vols will be angry, and he's going with a score of 63-28.
I think it's because he doesn't know that Hendon Hooker's gone.
You could very well be. I
don't think he knows.
I think you're right. I think he saw the score, he was devastated, and he probably just put his phone down immediately. And he's like, I'm not checking anything else.
Swam up to the swim up bar in the Bahamas and cut his phone off. I don't think that Matt knows.
I mean, wouldn't you? If you saw that score, you'd be like, I'm not looking at it anymore. I don't want to see it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, all right, so he's picking a big win here. Let me tell you, I have no idea what to think about this one. So Tennessee just got majorly exposed. Vandy is on a hot streak, running high on emotions, and as we know, that's a big factor, especially with we have a bunch of kids playing football here, so let's remember that. Yeah, as far as Vandy's concerned, this is the best chance they've had to beat Tennessee since the last time they did it, which was in 2018. So not as far back as you might think. But I mean, let's also not forget that Tennessee has had their own journey as well. So Milton getting the start. And while he can throw it a mile, dude throws it as far as I've seen anybody throw it. He's also had issues at the quarterback position. And then sometimes just flat out throwing it too far or putting too much zip on the pass that requires touch. We'll see. Y'all, Vandy is playing for a bowl game, okay? I can't believe that I'm doing this, but I'm picking with my heart, not with my brain. And I'm saying Vandy 42-35.
Whoa.
So yeah, I there's just so much riding on this one. There's so much emotion involved. Vandy's high on the wins. Tennessee is, just, oh man. And granted, they still have a lot to play for, but no, I don't know.
The 13 Vandy fans will set several trash cans on fire in Nashville.
What is the fine for number 4? Because this is in Nashville.
I don't know.
And I don't either.
But honestly, they're going to show up to the game because they won last week.
Yeah.
They're going to show up to the game, and they're not going to single file.
They're not going to single file
onto the field if they beat Tennessee.
Bunch of unruly Vandy fans. Oh man. All right. So all right.
Owen Wilson. What?
What? All right. So we've talked about all the games for upcoming rivalry week. What is the game to watch this week? I know what you're going to say, but I have to ask the question.
All of them.
All of them.
Watch them all, because we are at a point in the season, and we are in a season in which literally anything can happen. Watch them all.
It's such a good
else to do.
It's such a good week, right? I mean, you've got obviously there's holiday, there's all the food involved, and then there's just all these fantastic games to watch. And the majority of them look like they're going to be extremely competitive as well, even ones that we thought perhaps may not be. Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm gonna do the cop out and agree with you 100% that let's watch them all. I'm gonna watch them all. All right, so that does it for upcoming games, and then just real quick in rivalry week theme, just for fun. In honor of Rivalry Week, what is your favorite rivalry in pop culture? Now I'm talking like bitter enemies, right? It could be like a TV show, it could be a movie discussed in song, or maybe like maybe even like real life, like a real life feud between celebrities and all that kind of stuff. What is your favorite rivalry in
The
pop
first
culture?
one that comes to mind, and I may be stealing yours because we didn't write them down, is Jim and Dwight from The Office. I think it's the best television rivalry of all time because much like with Alabama and Auburn, it is one of those like familial rivalries where you feel it and there's so much deep, just like resentment.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, there's still that little bit of love where when you need each other, you're there. So I'm picking Jim and Dwight.
That's 100% what I was going to say. Whether it is Jim sending Dwight faxes from the future or sending him on crazy secret agent missions, or dressing like him in Bears Beats Battlestar Galactica, I'm here for it all. Yes, that is
My
100%.
favorite is like when he's like, "You have promised me you'll be on your best behavior," and he's like, "I promise that I'll be on my worst behavior because I already promised someone I'd be on my worst behavior."
Yeah, that's a good one. And then I love the other one where Dwight is talking about how his Dwight or Jim's new position is going to be what in Hotel Hell, where the owner is the devil, and and so Jim's like, so let me get this straight. So in your wildest fantasy, you are in hell, and you are co-owning a bed and breakfast with the devil.
Or when
You're not
he's
even the
like,
owner.
when he's like recording for Michael while he's on vacation in the meeting, and he's like, "Dwight is taking his clothes off. Dwight, put that down." He's like, "No, I'm not." And he's like, "Let the record show."
Yes. That was actually I think that one's season 3, and that was probably one of my favorite ones where Dwight Schrute is now wearing a baby's bonnet. And then of course Andy has to come in and like, "I am now chopping off Phyllis's head with a chainsaw."
Yeah.
And everybody's just like,
Andy.
all right, that's the end of it. You ruined it. Anyway, yes, that's fantastic. So good stuff there. Definitely looking forward to Rivalry Week. Thank you for listening to this episode. Lots of good stuff talked about, lots of good things to talk about, because it's that time of year, right? College football is getting insane, and it's just, quite frankly, a lot of fun to talk about. If you'd like to contact us, please hit us up an email at pigskinsandpageantry@gmail.com. We are at Pigskins and Pageantry on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Twitter, we are at PPSCC Podcast. Don't forget, we are available for download on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and most podcasting apps for iPhone, Android, and other operating systems. We are also on the Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment, subscribe, and review. We'd love 5 stars. Comments, any kind of engagement we appreciate, and makes the show fun. Had some people comment the other day on a Facebook post with their own thoughts and talk about how much they enjoyed the show. We appreciate that. And then we also appreciate the interaction, because it's one thing for us to talk about stuff, and it is fun to discuss, but it makes it that much more fun when you guys join in and we can kind of engage and have a conversation that way too. So appreciate that. Until next time, it's going to be a great week. This is Wes. Go Dogs.
Y'all beat the hell out of those Tigers. Let's go, Bama. Roll Tide.